Welcome to School of PE podcast. I'm your host, Chris Miller, and I'm so glad that you could join me this week. We are going to discuss topics about FE, PE, and SC, and we're also going to answer questions that will help students prepare for their exams. Let's get started.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the SOP's weekly podcast. We got a returning guest today, Luke from the great state of Hawaii. So, Luke, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Yeah, so hey, maybe if you want to catch up the audience on, who you are, what you do, and what you've been up to.
Sure. My name is Luke Mignogna. I'm a field engineer in the role of a site quality control manager. My company is Cape Environmental. We do environmental remediation projects, mostly for the government. Currently residing in Hawaii, and that's about it.
Sounds good. I was talking to Luke before the podcast. He's the first guy that we've had from a mobile office, so it's kind of cool. He's on the road, but he's not too busy for an SOPE podcast. Gotta love it. Today we got an interesting topic. We're going to talk about the critical role and nature of site quality control management. So, first off the bat, what the heck is site quality control management, Luke?
Quality control management is it's kind of a step down from, I would say, overall project management. Basically, the role of a quality control manager is to ensure that a project is being conducted and the work is being conducted according to the contract. Usually there's some specifications we need to go by, a whole bunch of plans, project plans. This all happens under a project manager. And that pretty much sums it up. And basically we want to, even in shorter terms, we want to keep everyone from being liable for issues. We don't want to have issues. We can lose money that way. So
Agree. I appreciate the summary. And what's kind of cool about today's topic is, you don't have to be an engineer to kind of have some kind of a horse in the race, right? When it comes to quality control, it applies to anything, whether you're baking cookies, selling tacos out of a food truck, or, working a construction site for an upcoming building. So that's what made what today's topic so interesting to me. So, when I teach the PMP, so quality is a big part of the PMP exam, and people are always asking about the differences between quality assurance and quality control. So, Luke, take it away.
So, in my eyes, quality assurance would be oversight of quality control. So, on the projects that I'm a part of,
Mm-hmm.
so. We have a client. They have a technical representative that comes out and he spot checks me. So he would be a QA officer over me as a QC. However, we do have subcontractors and they have their own quality control system. So in their eyes, I'm a QA to them. So it's just kind of a ladder type role.
It makes sense. Appreciate that. So, when it comes to quality, I mean, you're working on a project, you have specifications, you have maybe various codes that you have to follow, and you have requirements that you need to adhere to, right? So, like, for example, let's talk about car brakes we'll throw out there. So we expect when you put these things on a car, they work and they stop the car, right?
Mm-hmm.
At least we hope. And so, when you're designing these brake pads, I guess you understand what the use of them is for. So you understand that there needs to be a certain level of quality in the production of these brake pads. So, if you already know as someone that's working on the project that there's certain quality standards that you have to maintain, what's the need or what's the reason for having why does even site quality management even matter?
Well, like you said, Chris, I mean, what we need to do is check the boxes. If we have all the boxes checked, then there shouldn't be an issue at the end of the day. The car should stop. If we don't check all the boxes, that's a risk. So we're taking a risk that either the car won't stop or, one of the boxes might be to, add the brake grease in behind the pad. because we all know what squeaky brakes sound like, and it's
Yep.
annoying. So, I mean, that might be something else. It might be something a little more minor, but all in all, we want to check the boxes and ensure everything's 100% working as it should.
Makes absolute sense. So, can you talk about maybe what are some of the quality control procedures that take place to gauge site quality?
Quality control procedures for site quality are primarily based on the QC plan. So every project that I work on is based on a QC plan. There's a few major points to hit in there, and um, each QC plan is site and project specific. However, for the most part, they address either different phases of the operations or different operations, different procedures. So each one we'd approach separately
Hmm.
within the QC plan. And in that aspect, once we get down to a specific procedure or operation, we start to look at preparing for that operation, making sure we're totally prepared. At that point, everyone involved has a coordination meeting, or however you want to call it, in one way or another, preparatory meeting, coordination meeting, make sure that everyone involved is ready. And then once we start executing the work, we reevaluate again to make sure that we're still on track. And within there, we have reporting.
Hmm.
There could be requirements, for the client, follow-ups and things of that nature.
All right.
That's
No,
that sums that up.
no, I appreciate that. So, every plan has to entail something, right? So whether it's a cost management plan, you have to have maybe the sequence of activities, the duration, things like that. So what needs to be included in a site quality control plan?
So, um, I kind of touched on that, but the site quality control plan is a little more broad. It's also going to include any specifications, any other plans. It's kind of, you look at it as more of a on a flow chart, or a map.
Hmm.
It includes every little detail of everything, all the connections to all the other plans. There might be an environmental plan. We have a work plan. Everything is connected through the quality control plan on
All
site.
right. Fantastic. So, when it comes to a lot of things that people do, there's always maybe some way that you can automate something, or there's some kind of a software that's available that can, for example, project management. There's so many different softwares out there, right? That can kind of assist with that. Are there any softwares that, maybe you recommend or that you know of to assist with site quality control management?
Okay, so more recently in my work, we haven't been using a heavy software for quality control management. Sometimes there are softwares that are required by the client to use. It could be, something that's a military based software that we have to do this. It could be a good thing. It could be a redundant thing that needs done daily. But in the past, I've used a lot of Autodesk products. One being BIM 360, which is pretty broad, but it's for quality control purposes. We've used it as a database.
Hmm.
More recently, really just the simple Microsoft softwares like Word and
Hmm.
Excel, but automation is a huge part of it. So anything that you can do to eliminate redundancy daily or weekly or monthly or whatever you're doing can be done in Excel, and um, sometimes even Visual Basic within Excel or even Word.
Hmm.
Those types of things help significantly if they apply to the situation.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. So, when you're working on a project, sometimes we know projects don't always, I guess, fit into the budget. They don't always fit into the schedule, right? So, let's say you're running a little bit behind on a project, and there's some ways that you can get things back on schedule, right? You can add more resources, or maybe you can take some shortcuts, maybe cut some corners, so sometimes things will become a little bit riskier, and sometimes maybe quality might suffer if you go that route. So, what are some repercussions or consequences of not properly adhering to site quality control standards?
So repercussions, they could be significant. Some people on a project may not recognize that QC is even important,
Mhm.
but for everyone to realize and be on the same page that it needs to be clear for QC. Um, Repercussions, like I mentioned before, certain things, certain operations or processes that aren't conducted in the right manner
Mhm.
can cause the client to lose money. They could cause your company to lose money. I mean, I've seen it. I've seen it. I don't want to say I've been responsible for something like that, but I've seen it. So they could be major.
No, I agree. I agree. Quality is this definitely something you don't want to take a shortcut on. That's for sure. Um, you know, I guess when people are working on a project, or let's say you go back to when you're being a kid. Your parents say, "Hey, you got to go out and cut the lawn, mow the lawn, right?" Maybe you wanted to stay inside and watch Saturday morning cartoons, right? And you didn't want to go out and cut the lawn. So you can take shortcuts. You can maybe hurry, do a bad job, zigzag, whatever, right? And so the lawn doesn't look as presentable as it should. So does quality just fall on the one person, or how important are team members? So let's go to our lawn example. You know, could that lack of quality that you did cutting that lawn also maybe fall on the shoulders of others?
Yeah, I would say so. Everyone plays a role in the team. I think that doing a bad job would be a good way to get out of cutting the lawn in that situation. But it could also fall on, if you're a kid and your parents need the lawn cut, doesn't get cut. Maybe they don't have the time to cut it. Maybe I want to say what it would be township in most instances. There might be repercussions from the township in that instance. So here, something that seems so minor to a kid could actually mean something a little more major as it progresses and the work doesn't get done for sure.
No, great, great explanation. It's kind of funny is when I was a kid, I had to cut the grass, and, and this is in the '80s, so I'm dating myself. We had these little pop up sprinkler heads, right? When they turn on, they pop up, and then they'd close. They'd go back to like ground level. So you knew when you're running the lawnmower that you can't run over these sprinkler heads because they'll bust them, and then Dad has to come out and fix them. So I figure, you know what? I just run them over. I do that once, and I don't have to do any yard work anymore. Well, Luke, that didn't work. So that was a repercussion for sure. So, you know, we were talking about, overall, I guess, umbrella of today's discussion kind of outlines or overlays project management. We kind of touched on the different softwares that are available and things like that. So, is there any advice that you can give to people that are maybe transitioning to using a project management software?
Um, you know, Chris, as far as project management softwares, I wouldn't say that I'm extremely familiar with any softwares other than in what I mentioned.
Hmm.
Um, I think softwares in general can be helpful, but like I said, there can be redundancy with using softwares. If you don't need it, um, it may be required, and sometimes when things are required, they can be redundant and
Hmm.
actually have more of a negative outlook on your daily tasks.
Hmm.
Even so, if you're looking into some softwares, make sure you do your research, make sure you do your homework, and it needs to be the right software for the tasks.
No, I agree. I think research and homework is important, right? You don't want to either spend a lot of money implementing a software only to find out that
Mm,
it doesn't fit what you were, looking for it to do. So I think that's really important to do. You know, quality control maybe isn't for everybody, right? Maybe everyone's not cut out for to be successful in quality control. So, what are some of the qualities or skills needed to be successful in quality control?
So you're definitely right on that. There are many people that aren't cut out for quality control. You really have to be on it. You need
Mhm.
to pay attention to detail in its entirety. You need to know the plans, just like a project manager needs to
Mhm.
know their plans. Um, you need to know it like the back of your hand. I mean, whenever an issue comes up, you don't want to be scouring back through the paperwork to figure out what to do. You need to be proactive
Mhm.
and not reactive in those types of situations. And being reactive can actually result in some damage for sure.
I agree. I was looking through the questions for today, and I was like, all right, I've seen majority of this, and then all of a sudden I get to the bottom, and it's talking about bug leakage and bug release. What the heck is that?
I actually am not familiar with that term, to be honest, but um, I would relate that to the procedures that are in place in a
Mhm.
quality control plan to remedy issues. Because being realistic, every project has issues.
Mhm.
There's always going to be road bumps. Um, so that's what I would relate bug leakage, bug issues with. Sometimes they might be, a notification that you have to put out. Say you had I mean, I'm not really talking QC here, but as an environmental manager might see, okay, if you have a spill, right? A
Right.
spill on a construction site. I mean, there's notifications that need to be made there. I mean, 100%. They might be to the client's project manager within an hour, within 24 hours. There are many procedures set in place to remedy issues that come.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So I think so. Well, maybe one of the duties of a project manager that maybe isn't in the job description is diplomacy. Sometimes you have to be a bearer of bad news, and so I guess how can you diplomatically tell maybe a supplier or a vendor of your expectations in terms of product quality and timeliness for delivery?
Okay, so in terms of that, um, one way to be proactive in terms of obtaining, say, a product from a vendor. Um, for one, usually that product needs to be approved by the
Hmm.
client and by us before even being used. So, easy way to do that: obtain the cut sheet, product data sheet, however you call it, from the vendor beforehand. Get it approved. Okay, this product's approved. Let's get it shipped. What's your lead time on this? And if it's not a good time, then we might have to look at a different product or a different vendor altogether.
Have you ever had to be the bearer of bad news?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I usually it depends how severe the bad news is, but if it's a QC issue, then usually I am the bearer of bad news. If it's a major QC issue, that's something that may fall more on the project manager, and I'll get an easy way out on that one.
It's always nice to be able to hand the baton. Um, so let me ask you this. So I guess let's say I, bring you on for a project to do a particular task, and I'm like, hey, this is the I guess the budget or the expectations of from my side, and then you're managing the project, and you come across some things where you're like, holy cow, if we continue to go this way, the quality might not be where it needs to be. Who I guess overall is responsible for making the decision whether to continue or to be like, okay, you're right, let's see if we can't find an alternative path.
Right, I see what you're saying. So, I mean, I as a QC manager, I do work on a construction site. It's a remediation construction type job. Um, so there is a superintendent who's always on site. Um, that may be something that I would bring up with him initially. And if we can't get that resolved, if I can't resolve that with him, as we're on the same team.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some instances where a QC manager may not be playing as part of the team, or maybe the superintendent. Maybe I have a disagreement with the superintendent. If we can't get it resolved, it's going to have to go to the next level. As in pretty much any kind of workplace. That's the process.
No, perfectly laid out there, Luke. So, as I know we're getting kind of the end of the episode for today, so let me ask you this: being in the great state of Hawaii, it looks like there's a little cloudy day behind you. Any words of wisdom you want to impart to the audience for the day?
Oh well, I would have to highly recommend any QC opportunity that anyone gets, even as an engineer, because or any technical background from that matter. I think being a QC manager really helps you hone in on getting a full grasp of a project if you're not already there. So the fact that you need to pay attention to detail to complete the job,
mm-hmm.
or do a good job, it just helps you be a better overall engineer, or whatever background you're coming from. I couldn't recommend it enough, because realistically, and even people that do work on a project, a lot of people don't pay attention to detail, and it doesn't really come to light until you have to do it. So for that matter, I would just highly recommend this type of role.
No, I agree. I agree. It's an important role as well. And you said sometimes, not everyone pays, close attention in detail. And usually I think sometimes, especially when it comes to quality, if you're not paying close to attention in details and things are missed, you don't see them until they become bigger issues than they could have been if you would have, caught them at an earlier stage. So yeah, quality is definitely important, not only for the product, but also for the safety of the end user. But hey, Luke, appreciate you coming back for round 2. Love to have you back again. For everyone out there, have a great rest of your week, and enjoy what's left of the summer.
All righty, Chris. Thanks for having me.
All right, buddy. Have a good one.
Right. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.